Welcome to Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
And I am a fasting Wajahat who might or might not be a threat to the United States of America because I protest unjust wars and authoritarianism. I let
No,
you
I'm
decide.
I'm pretty sure you're a threat. Um, and we're gonna unpack all of that in a bit today, folks. It's been a wild ass week. And I wish that every time that we started this show, that's not where we start, but it's where we are now. So let's just jump into it. The whole week, right, has been wild, Waj, in terms of the stock market. Stocks tumble into correction as investors sour on Trump. The S&P 500 is now more than 10% below its last record high, a line in the sand for investors worried about a sell-off gathering steam. I want to show you all this chart, which what in the good goddamn?
It is the greatest unsubtle chart that describes America's downfall under Trump in the first 54 days. I think it's only been 54 days. I mean, that peak, folks, look at that. That peak was, oh, all right. Biden literally gives this gift to Donald Trump. And in less than 2 months, look where it is. Like, it's just a near nosedive. It's like you and me just like jumped off a diving board and went plunk, plunk. This is what it's happened. Do you feel great again, Danielle?
I mean, if this is what it means to be great again, like I'll just stay miserable because I mean, so here's the thing. We have said this so many times on this show that everybody was totally fine with Donald Trump coming in so long as they were going to get their tax cuts.
That's right.
They were going to, continue to live high on the hog. And, we said, oh, well, Donald Trump isn't going to like short, the people who got him into office, these donors. And now, I mean, just look at this. Folks, this is not a year, right? This is literally a few months. And this is where we are. And right now, like I said, the market is rallying, and we're going to get into one of the reasons why. But go ahead, Waj, please.
It's look, if you what's that game? Okay, let's read this first. The world's most widely followed stock market benchmark slid into correction on Thursday. A drop that underscores how the 2-year long bull market is running out of steam in the early days of the Trump administration. The move stems from investors' growing pessimism about the whipsawing policy pronouncements from Washington over the past few weeks. On again, off again, tariffs and mass layoffs of federal workers have fomented unease on Wall Street. So, that game, I think it's called, the two girls who play with the two jumping, the jump ropes is playing Dutch, right?
Double Dutch?
Double Dutch, okay.
Like, what?
And remember, like, there's a line, right? So everyone goes in, and then there's always that one person who holds up the line, and they're just like, I'm going to go in.
Yes,
Just hold up.
yes.
I'm building confidence. Slow it down a bit. Here we go. Okay, no. All right, just wait 1 second. It just gives everyone's like, will you jump or not? Donald Trump is doing that with a trade war with our allies, going back and forth, right? And now this trade war is on, folks. It is on. Now, I'm a simple English major, but I know investors like stability. They like knowing their partners are actually going to fulfill their word and not backtrack. So now that we have like China responding, now we have Canada responding, we have Mexico responding, we have EU responding to a completely reckless, unnecessary trade war. You know that left-wing outlet, Wall Street Journal, that rag for progressives called the dumbest trade war in history, folks.
Yes.
In addition to that, just yesterday, it was announced that they have fired 2,000 people from Johns Hopkins. Then 2 days before that, 1,300 people from the Department of Education.
Yep.
Thousands of individuals and contractors fired, and the hollowing out of, government institutions. So, Danielle, I'm a simple English major. You probably know this better than I do. If people are fired,
Mm-hmm.
that means they don't have income, they
Mm-hmm.
can't buy stuff,
Yep.
and their health insurance is tied to their job.
Yeah.
In addition to a trade war,
Mm-hmm.
what happens?
Oh, what's the word? Recession, depression, bad things. Look, I'm a political science major, so you and I together, not business folks, but I don't think that you need to have a degree in business to connect the dots here. Um, you cannot be robust consumers if you don't have a job, right? And in order for the consumers to be able to shop and buy from these companies that are on the market, like you need consumers. You have joblessness, people begin to just focus on the necessities and the
That's right.
essentials. And so you decide, guess what? You know what? We're not going to get that new car because we can't afford it. We're going to ride with what we got. We're not going to take that vacation. So guess what? The airlines, they're going to see a decline in people traveling on top of the fact that the planes keep falling out of the sky.
Another
Number
one. You know what?
right.
Another one.
Right. So there's that. People aren't going to take vacations. So you see, right, a chain reaction of what happens when you have mass layoffs. Oh, on top of which, mass layoffs in Washington, D.C., the housing market in the DMV area is on the decline. Why? Because people are selling their homes because they have no jobs anymore. So guess what? Federal workers are not just in Washington, D.C., Virginia, and Maryland. They're all over the country. So, what then happens as a chain reaction of a housing crisis then happens? You have people that are selling off their homes. The areas become more depressed. You don't have people going out to restaurants. You don't have dry cleaners that are operating anymore. The Uber drivers don't need to be there because guess what? Ain't nobody going nowhere. So, you see how we begin to have a domino
Yeah.
effect that occurs, right?
And also
And
internationally. I mean, I don't know if you saw that really good clip. There's so many clips out, but even on CNBC, right? I don't know if you all see those money markets. These guys are all hawks. They're like center left, the most that you're going to get liberal. A guy straight up said this is terrible for the economy because it doesn't attract foreign investors. They want stability. I mean, he went off. He was a host of one of these shows. And then the lady was trying to like, but maybe there's a method to the insanity. He's like, no, it's just insanity. Which brings me back to this analogy that you and I have used at least twice on the show, but it's just so worth it. Edward Norton's character in Knives Out 2 Glass Onion, where where deliberately Ryan Johnson, the writer and director of the series, makes Edward Norton's character to basically be a modern day Musk. And you find out at the end he's a totally mediocre white man who steals other people's ideas, but has promoted a myth of genius to the point that even his friends say, oh, he's brilliant. This must be brilliant, even though he says the stupidest things. And he builds a glass onion mansion. And like the metaphor is like literally in a glass onion, there's no center. You see right through it. It's all BS. And spoiler alert, in the end, it's revealed that he's a fraud. And his glass onion mansion, Danielle, it explodes.
blows
And
up.
I say this thinking about this.
Yeah.
Musk and Trump, there's no art of the deal here, folks.
No.
There's no 4D chess. This is them shorting the market. This is them breaking up America and selling it to the highest bidder. This to me looks like a deliberate hostile takeover and like type of this, you know, what you see the private equity mergers of companies, you know, what they do, they just hollow them out from the inside. It's like Tony Soprano, like coming in, taking over and just like, you know, selling it for pieces and making money. And it looks like Putin won. Like you look at this and like the oligarchy and Putin won. Like who does this benefit, Danielle? How does this help anyone?
I'm so glad that you asked this question because so you know the reporter, the White House reporter Peter Doocy, the
Gucci,
idiot
yes.
from Fox. So most of the time during the Biden administration, he just would ask the stupidest gaslighty questions to Corinne Jean-Pierre, right? And just to be like annoying, to be like an asshole. And all of a sudden now, he's asking like actual questions, right? So he asks this week, he goes, is is Donald Trump and Elon Musk, are they purposefully shorting the market in order to like make money? Are you sure that no one inside of the White House is purposefully doing this? Because folks, you have to understand. So here's the thing. Markets go down, right? Stocks become cheaper. For those who have the money, right? They go ahead and they start buying everything up because they know that eventually what goes down will go up. So it's a gambling tactic, right? And you know how to move and like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll buy Nvidia now because Nvidia is more affordable. Maybe I'll buy Amazon now because Amazon is more affordable. It's a game that the rich play at the expense of those of us who have our 401ks and pensions that are wrapped up inside of the market. For them, it's just a game, right? And if they bet against America because they know that the trade deals are going to the trade war is going to continue and they know what Donald Trump is going to do next, or they're just playing a little bit of poker, right? Like they actually will win in the long run. It's like when the housing market collapsed partly during COVID, who was able to then buy up, right? Big Short, the top movie. Like this is it. So Peter Ducey, known for his fucking stupidity, has started to ask like actual questions that the Barbie White House bobblehead is like, oh, no, of course not. Of course, nobody is doing that.
He even asked Donald Trump. Remember when Donald Trump was hawking a Tesla on Tuesday? He goes, look, I said, this was Peter Ducey. This is what he asked, and this is what he's saying. Don't you think Americans right now who can't access their retirement accounts, this might not like be a good look? Translation, maybe don't hawk Teslas from the White House lawn as you're firing Americans and you're telling them to retire and they have nothing left in their retirement accounts. And he said that on a one-on-one with Fox as well. So now that you have Peter Ducey, because remember, folks, at the end, and this is what I think is going to be really interesting. They love money more than they love Trump. This country worships money.
Yep.
It's the United States of America. In God we trust is on the dollar bill. The green trumps all other colors, even orange. And once Trump and Musk get into their bottom line, they start hurting them and their influence, they're going to start turning. At first, slowly, but it reminds me, and I've used this analogy before, and I'll use it again, 2006. Everyone was behind Bush. I was not. And this country lost its mind, Danielle. Remember that? 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. Remember that?
Yeah.
I was called a traitor, an American, the worst things possible, because speaking of not being able to fail up, we were right about everything that went wrong with the economy, with the war on terror. But then, like you mentioned, the Big Short, the housing crisis, the economic recession, Americans coming home in body bags. And do you remember what happened in 2006, 2007? Those same people who were radicalized during the war on terror did a 180 and came back. Because after a while, folks, losing your home and your job and your money and having the same people in power for 7 years was so much. There was so much pain that they're like, you know what? Let's let this black Muslim guy named Obama, let's give him a shot. So just something to look at. Don't worry, we're going to talk about Schumer and what's happening. But this is all because Donald Trump, it's not about the economic anxiety, folks. It's all about, economic anxiety, the zombie narrative that's been on for like the last 10 years. If it was about economic anxiety, Donald Trump would not tell Sean Hannity last month when Sean Hannity, of all people, asked him 5 times, can you stop like whining? Can you talk about the economy 5 times? And what did Donald Trump say? I don't care.
Shut up about the economy. I don't care.
I don't care. Or last week when not just last week, a couple of days ago when he reposted, shut up about the price of eggs. It ain't about economic anxiety.
Oh no. Even better. Even better. Are now Republicans getting on television talking about, the market's been inflated for some time. So a correction and a recession is necessary
That's what they're
in
saying.
order to.
Yes.
I'm sorry, what? When
We
in
need some
God's name
pain.
would you say that a recession is necessary? Like, who the fuck do you think that you're kidding right now? Like, the market's been too hot and overinflated, and right now what's happening is a massive correction. Is
They're
that right?
openly telling you they're all in on it because now, as Danielle said, they're openly telling their own base, we need to go through a little bit of pain. Which, if you watch Democracy-ish, we brought it up right before the election because Elon Musk admitted it. There was a really telling quote. He goes, "There's going to be, there's going to be some growing pains, but this is what's important." And Trump just echoed that. He goes, "In the long run, this is what's necessary. A recession, losing your home, losing
Yep.
your car, losing your
Yep.
job, not having health insurance, and they don't care because they want power. And
Yep.
secondly, it ain't about the economy. It's about making them, the oligarchy, richer, turning everything into crypto. And the other reason for it, and what he's beholden to, is the white nationalist racist base going after the immigrants, even if it means sinking the economy, because that's his pretext for everything. I want Canada to do more on fentanyl. I want Mexico to do more on the immigrants. I want people to come from the good countries, not the SO countries. I'm going to get rid of the bad immigrants. And we kept warning folks, Danielle, before we switch on how he attacks the immigrants, how it's all connected.
Mm-hmm.
Even those wealthy folks who voted for Trump for his tax cuts, just like you laid it out, I said, you'll get your tax cuts. You'll save a little bit of money. But at the cost of the economy tanking,
Yeah.
at the cost of like the housing crisis, at the cost of us losing our freedoms, at the cost of your kid, your brown and black Muslim kid in college being seen as a suspect. Because I remember, Danielle, and I pay attention, I keep receipts. Donald Trump said last year during the beginning of the Gaza crisis, we're going to bar Palestinian refugees.
Yep.
We're going to bring back the Muslim ban.
Yep.
We're going to do a litmus test to keep out radical elements. We're like, what does that mean? And in Project 2025, that's something called Project Esther about the crackdown on pro-Palestinian protests and using that as a wedge issue and as a battering ram against free speech, free assembly, and public education. Why do you think I mention all of this, Danielle?
Oh, I don't know. I just think it's top of mind. And you think that in this moment, Democrats, 50 some odd days in, Waj,
54, I think, yeah.
would have gotten the memo that this Republican fascist regime is not to be worked with, right? Like, you shouldn't be in cooperation with this regime because, particularly as they're trying to pass their budget, their continuing resolution right now for a budget that would decimate the middle, working class, and the poor in this country by decimating Social Security, Medicaid, Department of Education, so on and so forth, that you would think that Democrats would band together in order to utilize the leverage that they have because their votes are needed in order to send a message. But if you're these Democrats,
I give you a Schumer.
I give you Chuck fucking Schumer. I tweeted this last night. Well, not tweeted because I'm not on Twitter. I posted this last night on Blue Sky. I posted the number to his office. And I said that everybody needs to call Chuck fucking Schumer. Because once again, this mealy mouth, spineless, fucking stingless jellyfish, this worthless man.
Why disrespect jellyfish?
Exactly. Has decided to cave once again because this is the moment that we do this in. So this is what he writes, folks. Trump and Republican leaders would like nothing more than to pull us into the mud of a protracted government shutdown. Let me pause for a second. News fucking flash. Tens of thousands of workers have already been fired from the federal government. Our institutions have already been gutted and are toothless. You have a EPA administrator that just said, make pollution great again. You have like the USAID is gone, gutted. You have the Department of Education on the way to an executive order being gutted. You have like every single agency that is
Veterans Affairs,
Veterans
IRS.
Affairs, 80,000 workers fired, right? IRS, half of the workers fired. Tell me that we're not in a government shutdown already. So this idiot says for Donald Trump, a shutdown would be a gift. No, you rolling over like a 2-bit hooker would be the fucking gift. And that's exactly what you're doing.
I haven't heard 2-bit hooker. It's such a long.
I know. It's a throwback.
I rarely laugh out loud. If you notice, I chuckle. That actually made me laugh out loud. That's the 2-bit hooker. 80s and 90s. That's an old school reference that put the smile on my face, Danielle. That's how we used to talk back in the day, children. You learn. Auntie Danielle came with an old school cut. Oh, we need to bring back 2-bit hookers for people like Chuck Schumer. Not only that, folks, he did a 180. He betrayed the Democrats. Remember, this is the same Chuck Schumer who was saying we have a unified caucus, and then late last night he's the one who said, not really, and then came out all mealy mouth, and it's seen as a major betrayal because even the House Democrats under Jeffries are like, no, hold fast, right? This is not like, oh, the Democrats came together and they said, you know what, I think this is the best option. There is a brewing civil war in the Democratic Party. And the reason why AOC used the word betrayal yesterday in her CNN appearance is exactly because of that. The Democrats in the House were unified. They had a caucus. They sent the Democratic Senate's kind of like this gift. They're like, okay, we hold tight. They don't have the votes. They need to get 60. They can't do it without us. This will force them at the very least to come back to us and compromise. Why give up your leverage? Why go down without a fight? And Chuck Schumer says, I'm aroused. The people are aroused. That's the famous Schumer quote after Trump unilaterally froze funding, right? The what the Supreme Court said he couldn't do, right? So after he did that, Chuck Schumer said, the people are aroused. We're aroused. But right after they heard Chuck Schumer say that, they lost their boner. It seems like Chuck Schumer is no longer aroused, and he caved. And just look at this. Jeffries, Clark, and Aguilar, even Aguilar, all have a statement slamming Schumer. House Democrats will not be complicit. We remain strongly opposed to the partisan spending bill under consideration in the Senate. But I'm sorry to say, Danielle, something in that New York water, it is reported that the New York Senators, Gillibrand, in the Senate Democratic meeting, she was the one yelling at people, literally yelling at people to get on board. And Schumer now is the one. So they apparently have Fetterman, Gillibrand, Schumer, and he has apparently the requisite 8 votes. But anyway, that was my rant. I blame New York.
I want to bring up, and you should blame New York because every one of them have to go. But I wanted to, you just took it down and I wanted to put it back up. Let me see if I can find it. No, it was Margaret's comment.
Oh.
And let me see, because Margaret, there it is. This is 1,000% right. Chuck did a 180 because he cashed up. His cashed up establishment donors said they were losing money in the markets. And I want to go back. And so let me go back to Chuck Schumer's post where he's talking about the fact that Donald Trump owns the chaos in the stock market. He owns the damage happening to our economy. The stock market is crashing and consumer confidence is plummeting. Let us unpack that. The unpacking is that his donors came a knocking, and rather than stand up for the American people who are going to lose their Social Security and their Medicaid, who are going to have to figure out where their kids are going to school because the Department of Education is going to shutter its doors, right? Chuck Schumer decided that he was rather be in bed with his donors so that they can continue making money and the stock market rebound today because of him caving. So you tell me who is on the side of the people, because it sure as hell is not Chuck Schumer or Gillibrand, right? Or Fetterman or the rest of them that are going to give the Republicans their votes.
And look at even Danielle, look at even the priorities, right? He ends with Social Security, Medicaid. What does he start with? Chaos in the stock market.
Yep.
Damage happening to our economy.
Yep.
Stock market is crashing.
Again.
Yeah. And honestly, yes, it's the stock market is an indicator, but a lot of Americans don't own stocks. They don't have money for it, right? So when you're talking about the stock market crashing, and that's when Democrats come out, what they're saying is my rich investors and donors in Wall Street who live in Florida, in California, are freaking out and they want to rebound and they don't know what's going to happen with the government shutdown. They don't like volatility, so play ball. That's the lead for him. For others, like Representative Green, 77 years old, when he took his cane, the lead for him was Medicaid and Social Security. That's why he was yelling at Donald Trump. And then he was removed. And 10 of his fellow Democrats censured him. They censured him. They are bought out. They are paid out. They do not reflect the will of the people. They do not reflect the righteous rage of the people. And this is why, Danielle, I think this leadership, not all Democrats, but this leadership is atrophied. They're not built for this fight. They're not made for this moment. We need to put them in an Elon Musk SpaceX rocket and launch them to the sun. You and I have been saying this for a couple of years, but I think there's just something about this moment where Donald Trump is handing them a gift by destroying everything. Republicans control the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, the media, the presidency. Everyone knows it. Trump's numbers are tanking. He has the lowest economic rankings of his entire 10-year tenure, right? It's at -12. You do not have to help this guy. And the fact that they're still willing to do it and not fight, I'm done. I've been done for a while, but new leadership, do something. There you go.
So, I mean, here we go. Because AOC, right, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, has been out there and has been 10 toes down for the people since she came into office, right? If you remember, folks, she unseated a longtime white male incumbent in the House.
Who thought it was his birthright? Yeah.
He'd been doing the same thing over and over again. And she was just like, you know what? I can do better. And so right now, there are murmurings. Ocasio-Cortez mobilizes Democrats against Schumer plan, his CR bullshit plan, as colleagues privately urge her to consider a primary challenge. And she said this, as Waj mentioned earlier, quote, I think there is a deep sense of outrage and betrayal. Ocasio-Cortez told reporters in Leesburg, Virginia, where House Democrats are huddling for their annual policy retreat. She said, and her fellow Democrats are, quote, texting, calling, sending carrier pigeons to mobilize the Democratic base against Schumer's plan to allow the GOP funding bill to advance. And she slammed Senate Democrats for their decision to, quote, completely roll over and give up on protecting the Constitution. Or, like I said, lay down like a two-bit hooker.
You know what? Right before you just said that, and as you were reading that, I just heard you in your voice saying two-bit hooker, and it put a smile in my inner brain. Look, even if she loses, do it. That's what I wrote last night, right? She went for it was her versus 74-year-old Jerry Connolly.
I couldn't remember his name.
The young 74-year-old who's battling cancer to head the House Oversight Committee. She lost. And it just goes to show you they gave it to Jerry Connolly because it was his time, Danielle, due to age and seniority and donorship. Jasmine Crockett Instead of giving her the head of the director of communications, they gave it to Debbie Dingell, 71 years old. Have you heard anything from Debbie Dingell or Jerry Connolly? Have they dropped any Dingell bangers or Jerry Connolly, pieces of wisdom on Zoom which you can't use? Of course not. But I'm using old, not in a pejorative way. The old guard, those old type of habits and customs. Well, this is how we do it. In the back room, we we give you like a jacket and we give you a slap on the shoulders and we give you some gin and we say, now it's your time. You've made it, Tommy from Goodfellas. Figuratively, maybe do it the way what happened in the end of Goodfellas. And this is for people who know what I'm talking about. Tommy doesn't get the promotion. Tommy gets taken out back and retired. And maybe it's time to retire these people, folks. Tomorrow's the Ides of March. No, it's March 15th. Figuratively, folks, you know what? Time to take down the Caesars. There's Caesars in the Democratic Party, right? Remove this toxic Democratic leadership. They're not built for this fight. They are not made for this moment. And it isn't just about the old timers. Bernie's in his 80s. He's out there fighting. Maxine Waters, 86. She's out there fighting. Like I said, Representative Green is 77. We need fighters. The fighters will be rewarded. If you're not willing to fight, you're about as useful to me as a second belly button. And no disrespect to second belly buttons, because at least it's just a second belly button is just weird. It's not harmful.
At least it's interesting.
Yeah.
And nothing that Democrats are doing right now is
toxic,
interesting.
Poisonous belly button that has fungus that might kill you.
So look, privately, House Democrats are so infuriated with Chuck Schumer's decision that some have begun encouraging her, AOC, to run against Schumer in a primary. According to a Democratic member who directly spoke with Ocasio-Cortez about running at the caucus policy retreat, multiple Democrats in the Congressional Progressive Caucus and others directly encouraged Ocasio-Cortez to run on Thursday night after Schumer's announcement. This member said, "It's beyond time." Right? It is beyond time. I've said this multiple times on this show. Chuck Schumer has been my senator my entire life, and I am not young, right? It is time. This is the reason why there should be term limits. And somebody had posted on Blue Sky, and they said it so eloquently. They said, the problem with Democrats is that they do not have a succession plan.
Yep.
Their succession plan is fucking hospice.
That's true. Look at the
age.
You
know what I'm saying?
Look at the ages.
So there is no one that they're thinking to themselves, you know what? It's time for us to pass the baton. It's time for us to move from the front right of the room into a mentor back of the room positioning, because this is a new game. It is a new fight. And this is what we need to do, because let's just look at the ages of the people that are in the Republican Party now. Their young people are fucking stupid, right? Just as their old people are. But the White House press secretary, 26 years old.
Moron, but 26.
VP of the United States right now, in his 40s.
Yeah, I think he's 40, right? Or 41?
Hegseth, in his 40s, right? Defense secretary, 40s. The people that are out in front in the Republican Party are actually 30 years younger than the average age of Democratic leadership right now. So regardless of whether or not those people, like, we think that they're smart or should be in those positions, the fact of the matter is that Republicans are not working from this wait in line type of BS.
Well, they did a takeover of their own party. It was the Tea Party that manifested into MAGA. And what did they do? They did a hostile takeover. MAGA has now consumed the GOP to the point where George W. Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain are seen as rhinos. They're seen as traitors to the party. So I don't want that type of hostile takeover of authoritarians and fascists. None of us do. But maybe that's what's necessary for the Democratic Party. It's ossified. This reminds me of that quote of Charlton Heston, right? When he did that NRA speech, "They'll have to pry this gun from my dead, cold hands." Schumer in his 70s, Durbin, I think, is 80. Jerry Connolly, 74. Dingle, 71. I mean, just look at these. Like, what are we doing? And again, they don't have the requisite fight. So if you're at that age, be like Bernie. Be like Maxine Waters, who's 86, who fights, right? But they don't have it. It's all the old-timey, old donors, old ways, customs, that type of Remember that image of Schumer and Trump like laughing behind closed doors that leaked after? That's what they are. And they don't care, folks. Pelosi, I'm sorry. They don't know how to fight in this game. They don't know what they're up against. They don't even know how to use Zoom. Jerry Connolly doesn't even know how to use his camera, folks. Okay. Have you heard anything from Debbie Dingle? Meanwhile, you got Jasmine Crockett holding up her phone like this while literally sitting in a plane about to take off, and she's on MSNBC, and they deny her leadership. It's the fighters who will be emerging. And speaking about the lack of fighters, there's another really scary story that ties into Donald Trump's outright attacks on our freedoms, outright attacks on the Democratic base, outright attacks on free assembly and colleges. And that is all, if you will, perfectly summarized on this disgusting, shameful, terrifying attack on Mahmoud Khalil, who is a green card holder, a permanent lawful resident, a man who's a Palestinian student at Columbia, a person who's married to a U.S. citizen who's 8 months pregnant. His crime, Danielle, according to the Trump administration, was simply engaging in speech and protest they don't like. He was one of the people who was one of the organizers of the overwhelmingly peaceful pro-Palestinian anti-war protest at Columbia. Columbia just lost $400 million thanks to the Trump administration. Mahmoud Khalil was detained by ICE and now is in a prison in Louisiana. At first, his wife had no idea where he was. They said, and by they, I'm talking about Homeland Security and the White House, initially, he's aligned with Hamas. What does that mean? He's committed crimes. What does that mean? And then 2 days ago, the White House itself said, yeah, there's no crimes. Marco Rubio, as Secretary of State, is relying upon this old-timey, rarely used exception to go after people whom he thinks are threats to U.S. foreign policy. So based on their own admission, 0 crimes, he's been charged with nothing, but he just happens to be a pro-Palestinian activist and green card holder. And now the Trump administration and Donald Trump himself said, yep, we're going to go after and detain and deport all these immigrants and all these anti-Semites, which is so infuriating because this is the most anti-Semitic administration that we've had in recent times. They're using Jews as a battering ram against our free speech and First Amendment. And let's just be clear, there were right-wing Zionist Jewish groups and funders who love this. They're the ones who worked in tandem with the Trump administration to do exactly this, to silence anyone and everyone, including Jews, because there are a lot of Jewish leaders and Jewish American students who are part and parcel of this multicultural campaign against what, Danielle? A genocide to end occupation. They don't care. ADL, folks, ADL supports this. Sorry for my rant.
Here's the thing. What is killing me about this case, and this is what I have said on the Danielle Moodie show and on here, keeps me up at night, is that Mahmoud Khalil could very well be Waj, could very well be me, could very well be anyone who has been using their platform, whether in protest or turning on a microphone, to draw attention to the horrendous occupation and genocide that is happening in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Israel, and in Palestine. Right? And the fact is that what people like Scott Jennings, who is getting a raise at CNN for being an absolute abject liar has gone on television without evidence, without facts, and has said Mahmoud Khalil's group wants to eradicate Western civilization. Oh, so that's why he's a green card holder inside of the United States and married to a U.S. citizen, and foment unrest in the United States. President Trump and Secretary Rubio are well within their legal rights to deport this radical. This son of a bitch is on CNN spouting hateful, anti-Muslim, anti-humanitarian, discriminatory nonsense that essentially says that anyone who Rubio and Donald Trump don't agree with and whose ideology is not aligned with theirs is a radical and a terrorist and doesn't belong in this country. That's what Scott Jennings is saying on cable news.
But just break it down. Break down what he said. It's absolute nonsense. Eradicate Western civilization, like, I don't know, parroting Putin's talking points and betraying our European allies and saying that Ukraine started the war, tanking the stock market, ending birthright citizenship, dismantling the government, banning books, going against minority groups like LGBTQ. Is that saving Western civilization? We're going to become like Europe, the same Europe that is aligned right now to protect the post-World War II order and Ukraine against Russia and authoritarians, like that Europe. The same Europe that J.D. Vance went and lectured to 2 weeks ago about free speech. Meanwhile, just 2 weeks later, this is what Donald Trump is doing. And Elon Musk is supporting the crackdown on protesters, whom Donald Trump called what? Domestic terrorists. He said those people who go against these Tesla dealerships, and only Tesla dealerships, are domestic terrorists. So please, why does this man have a platform? Why does he dominate the entire panel? And why does Abby Phillips and no one else shut him down like I just did right now? It's all part of the game. It's all part of the plan.
That exactly right. And so, folks, you can go back to our opening conversation with regard to the stock market, who mostly has their money in there and who is gambling with our 401ks and our pensions, right? White conservative men who decided that Donald Trump was going to be good for their bottom line. So fuck democracy in the country and the rule of law, until all of a sudden it starts to hurt them. And then now all of a sudden, market instability. We need Chuck Schumer to come fly in, parachute in and save us all, while he capitulates to the Republican Party, whose fascist regime has already been breaking down the government. So what would be the difference between an actual government shutdown and what the fuck they're doing right now? Nothing. So, it's like you see this situation and you realize that it's all connected, right?
Yep.
Like, these people make money off of their lives. They make money off of gambling, off of our lives. And and when people say there's no difference between Republicans and Democrats, this is what they're talking about. Because when given the opportunity to show that there's a difference, not just pretend to be the adult in the room, but actually the defenders of democracy, they lay down.
That's right. And can I say something about Scott Jennings and CNN? I've been keeping receipts. On that same show a couple of months ago, Scott Jennings, without any pushback from Abby Phillips or any guests, openly said that Ilhan Omar is a Hamas PR agent. No pushback. That was the same show where Mehdi, that other guy, that right-wing doofus, said beep beep, and because it's Mehdi, Mehdi actually made a point of it, and I think that Ryan something, his last name was, he got kicked out, and then Mehdi left also because he was, I don't have time for this, and Mehdi then messaged me as he was at the elevators saying, I was like, hey man, are you okay? And he's like, I left, I don't have time for this, right? So this is CNN, folks. Scott Jennings parrots that nonsense, attacks people like Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar is a Hamas PR agent. Why? What proof? What proof, Danielle? Oh yeah, a black Muslim woman in hijab.
But let me tell you something. We sit around and we say Scott Jennings, Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Elon Musk, white supremacists, Nazis, right? And people are like, how dare you? And I'm just like, Run the fucking receipts.
Play the tape.
Play
Play
the tape. Run the receipts. Here's what they've said. Here's what they vote for. Here's the Hike Siegel, right? Like, here's all of it. And yet we want to part and parcel out whether or not we're being hyperbolic when we call a thing, but they get on national TV and call anyone who doesn't agree with and celebrate their fascist regime. Somehow we're radicals and we're terrorists.
And we're mean and we're not being civil.
We tell the truth about what it is that they are using their own symbolism, words, and policies, and somehow we're the crazy ones.
On this show, if you've been watching, we said, because we keep the receipts and we take Trump literally and seriously, that he will impose the Alien Enemies Act, like he promised he would during the campaign trail. Danielle, what just happened this week?
You know, Trump administration has made plans to send migrant detainees to Guantanamo Bay using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which would allow officials to detain and deport detainees without any of the due process outlined in the immigration law. Newsflash, though, just breaking news here, was that this week, so far, only 41 migrants had been sent to Guantanamo Bay, and then a court ordered they return. And so no one is at Guantanamo Bay now because they've all been brought to Louisiana.
They can't even do that right.
They can't even do that right. So the regime that says we're going to deport millions of people, 2 million people a year, 30,000 people a month, they got 41 people on a plane to Guantanamo Bay and then wasted $16 million of our taxpayer dollars in their Guantanamo Bay expansion project just to have those people rerouted right back to the United States, to Louisiana.
E. Schwartz, exactly. Inefficient, even in their purported evil. Inefficient and incompetent. They're like, we don't have enough beds. We don't have the resources. We don't have the personnel to do it. So now they're all stuck in Louisiana. And I just want to remind people, the Alien Enemies Act has been used 3 times. War of 1812, World War I, World War II. Most infamously and shamelessly during World War II, under exigent circumstances, without any evidence, we, the United States of America, it was us, interned American citizens of Japanese descent. They always call it the Japanese internment. It wasn't. It was the American internment of American citizens of Japanese descent. Innocent American communities who lost everything for 2 years, put in prison. Can you imagine one day the government just shows up and says, leave your house, leave your job, leave everything, and we're going to put you in a camp for 2 years, and good luck rebuilding. That's what happened. And later, it was revealed the evidence that they had was much like the evidence against Mahmoud Khalil, completely flimsy, made up, non-existent. But because they were the enemy of the day, the boogie person of the day, the Muslim, the undocumented, the trans, society went along with it. And they said, you know what? I'm not Japanese American. It won't affect me. And so look, Alien Enemies Act, the crackdown on Mahmoud Khalil without any evidence, punishing Columbia University, going against all these institutions that they don't like, gutting them, fantasizing about Liz Cheney, who was once a number 3 Republican, being shot in the face by a firing squad. Mike Pence, the most loyal reek, running for his life. They're going to go after all of you. And I want to give you one more receipt. Donald Trump said right before the election, quoting Hitler yet again, I will unleash the military and the National Guard against the enemy from within. Who is the enemy from within, Danielle?
All of us. All of us. And so I want to read this right here. Again, to just underscore all of the things that Waj is saying. The White House explicitly said they do not have any evidence of Khalil doing what Scott said he did, and what they are not alleging he broke any laws to be deemed a threat. They are literally saying this, and clowns like Scott, foaming at the mouth, insists otherwise. And so, folks, you know, here's the thing. only 14 Democrats signed a letter demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil. So why is it that you think that Republicans move for the low-hanging fruit first? Because they know that the quote-unquote opposition party doesn't have any opposition to any of the things that they are doing.
That's right.
They know that they would rather hold on to their jobs than actually do their fucking jobs. So if they turned around and said he should be released, and this is not, again, I just want to remind folks, this has nothing to do with whether or not you agree with his ideology. It doesn't. It is about the fact that he has the right to think and protest the way that he wants by virtue given to us under the Constitution of the United States. We have the right to protest. We have the right to free speech. And the moment that you start making caveats about that shit, democracy is gone for good. And that is what Democrats are doing, because every single Democrat in the House and in the Senate should have signed on to a fucking letter that should have been published in every paper on every site that said that they demand the release of this legal resident of the United States because he broke no laws. You don't like what he stands for, but he is allowed to stand on his principle so long as no one is being hurt. So
Only
if they
14.
can come for the Mahmoud Khalils, they can come for the Danielle Moodies, they can come for the Wajahat Alis, they can come for every single one of us and decide that by virtue of the fact that we speak out for injustice and on humanitarian causes, that we are now a threat. This is why this case matters.
And, you know, I want to remind folks the rise of stochastic terrorism against any and all of Donald Trump's critics, the press, judges, doctors, Dr. Fauci, Republicans, law enforcement, poll workers, students, college professors, anyone and everyone. Alien Enemies Act, unleashing the military, threatening to unleash the military, you know, archaic laws justifying arbitrary detention. This is what happens in authoritarian regimes. And meanwhile, you have Chuck Schumer. We are aroused. Everyone's aroused. And even Democrats. It was Representative Moskowitz, who hemmed and hawed and didn't sign on and said, well, student visa, you can't just sit there and be pro-Hamas. You literally, that's a Democrat repeating these Republican talking points, justifying what happened to Mahmoud Khalil. He was also one of the 10 who censured Representative Green. Also remind you that there were 40 plus Democrats who signed on with Republicans for the Lake and Riley Act, this cruel, arbitrary punishment of undocumented immigrants for simply being charged with a crime such as shoplifting. And they're moving to the center, pushing the Overton window to the right, because this is how their bread is buttered. The reason why a lot of Democrats aren't jumping on is because, let's be honest, they get funding. They get funding from AIPAC. Yep. They get funding for a lot of these corporate donors. I was talking to Summer Lee yesterday, Representative Lee. She said it. She called it out. AIPAC, dark money, corporate money. And so they're willing to literally sell us out for their donors, for their own power and their own, if you will, relationship to power, where as long as they can keep sucking at the teat, even barely hanging on with their lips, with their teeth to the teat, as long as it feeds them, who cares about the rest of us? You got your tax cuts. You're going to get your post-election job. You're going to sit comfortably on the board. You'll get your 6-figure, 7-figure salary. So throw us under the bus. That's what these Democrats are doing. But the good news is, and there is good news, is that people are fighting back. Danielle, give me some good news.
Because Waj leaves it to me after he goes through all of the terrible things. He's like, you go find the good news.
That's literally what I said yesterday.
Yeah.
I sent her the outline and I'm just like, it's 2 a.m. I'm tired. I'm like, Danielle, I leave you the good news.
I leave you to go find the good news. So like we said, Democrats may not be doing what it is that they need to do, but the people are. And the people, like I keep saying on this show and on the Danielle Moodie show, that spring is coming. And the warmer weather is always a catalyst for more people going and flooding into the streets. And yesterday, the group known as Jewish Voices for Peace stormed Trump Plaza in New York City, took over the lobby, and were chanting on behalf of Mahmoud Khalil and his release. Nearly 100 protesters were arrested on Thursday following a sit-in at Trump Tower in Manhattan to demand the release of Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist detained over the weekend by federal immigration agents. It should say kidnapped. The organization, Jewish Voice for Peace, live streamed the sit-in because they know how to use the fucking media to draw attention to the actions that they are taking, showing hundreds of demonstrators packed into the building's lobby. Some held signs that read, "Fight Nazis, not students," "Free Mahmoud," "Free Palestine," and "You can't deport a movement." Many people could be heard chanting, "Free Mahmoud."
Listen, JVP, good for them. JVP realizes, like I mentioned, that this administration and the right wing in particular is cynically using them as props and using Jews and anti-Semitism, specifically weaponizing anti-Semitism to actually be more anti-Semitic, go after protesters, go after Democrats, and go after free speech and colleges. So they get it. They realize, oh, you're using us and an alleged defense of us to go after Mahmoud Khalil's and Columbia University. We're not stupid. And look at the shirt, not in our name. Meanwhile, folks, and it shows you that so there's a joke within Jewish communities. If you get 10 Jews in a room, you have 11 opinions. Look at the ADL. Look at the ADL. Look what the ADL has done in the past couple of months, Danielle. That's a civil rights organization.
Yeah. What is it? What has the ADL done? The ADL has tried to convince the American people, the Anti-Defamation League has tried to convince the American people that we did not see Elon Musk give a Nazi salute twice.
It was unfortunate.
That it's unfortunate, but that's not what it was. That it's tried to convince us, right, that this entire regime is not anti-Semitic, has stood up and aligned with the Trump regime and against people who are fighting for the rights of all humans, right? And the right for Palestinian people to exist. So, you see that
ADL is the Schumer of Jews. And according to Donald Trump, Schumer is no longer Jewish. He's Palestinian. And Schumer said, "Thank you. May I have another?" That was also big news, but racism is okay. Using Palestinian literally as a slur. And then saying a Jewish man is no longer Jewish and has now become Palestinian as of him saying, not even implying, saying he's become worse.
Yeah, it is, folks, what we have to understand. And I'll continue. I'll end with this, and then I'll turn it over to you, Waj. Is that what we have to understand? Is that again, they come for the low hanging fruit first. They go for the trans people because the majority of Americans don't know a trans person, and you can create a boogeyman out of them. They go for the Palestinian activists because humanitarian rights for Palestinians is a lightning rod of an issue in the United States. And they know that Democrats fear their seats more than they do fighting for justice.
Can I ask you this? Can I tell you this breaking news from 19 minutes ago? Interesting, folks. Listen, don't underestimate the power of the majority. Don't underestimate the power of people coming together in a unified voice. In a new statement 19 minutes ago, Nancy Pelosi is calling on Democratic senators to go against Chuck Schumer. Democratic senators, quote, should listen to women. Also, Senator Raphael Warnock Georgia, asked about the performance of Chuck Schumer. This is what he said an hour ago. Quote, I think come 2028, we'll get some new leadership. Come on now. Some hope.
It's, and this is what I say, folks. Keep calling, right? Keep calling these Democratic senators. Keep sitting in, right? If you have the ability and the privilege to do so, keep speaking out. Because at the end of the day, what they try and do is pit all of us against each other.
That's right.
Right? They throw out the crumbs and they have us fight over them while they eat high on the hog. They have us look at each other as enemies because as a collective, we are more powerful than they are. It is Mahmoud Khalil today. It is any one of us tomorrow. So we cannot just, lay down. We cannot just turn our backs. We cannot just say, oh, it's not me this time, and take a deep breath.
Amen. Look, they come after all of us. We're students of history here. And in democracy-ish, we've tried our best for 2 years to call it out. We call the balls and strikes. As you saw today, we give no favor to Democrats or Republicans. Whoever is doing a good job, we give them compliments. Whoever is failing us and against the side of justice, truth, and equality, we call them out. We're independent media, folks. Danielle and I have been doing this 2 years. We went on YouTube a couple of months ago like fools. We have no paywalls. We don't take any corporate sponsorship. So we are dependent upon the kindness of our community. It is purely up to you, your views, your shares, your likes. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to Danielle's show. If you're watching us on YouTube, click the bell. You'll be notified each time she goes live. Please like this video because we've been informed the elves, who I don't know if they're unionized, probably not, in the algorithm. Appreciate it. We're about to post this in 2 minutes. Once it gets posted, share it everywhere because the more you share it, emails, Blue Sky, X, Facebook, it goes a long way. If you want to be a super chatter, you'll see that button with a heart and a dollar bill. Some of those folks who today we got our first $100 bill.
Jessica,
that was huge.
Thank you so very much. That was huge.
It all goes a long way because we're purely independent. So please support us. Every dollar, some people give 99 cents, $1.99. We know times are tough. It goes a long way. You don't have to do it. And keep watching us. Keep supporting us. Danielle, how many subscribers do you have? 15,000?
A little over 15,000, folks. We're trucking along, but I'd like to hit 16, then 20, and go on and on. What I want to say is that there are people, our super stickers, our super thanks folks, that literally give money every show that we do. Folks like the Vex Mom and Hank the Skank and E. Schwartz and others. I want to tell you that we see you and we appreciate every dollar that you put in, and know that Barb and others literally give money every show. And it matters, and we're grateful for it. Because, goddamn, we're not the Scott Jennings of the world that get to make, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars going on TV to lie to the American people. And it's unfortunate, right? But we know that we do this because this work matters, that it is our calling to tell the truth, to share what we know, to connect the dots for the public, because you deserve it.
And also, in Ida, thank you. We got people, you know what we noticed? We have people internationally watching us. Ida's from
there's tons
Morocco.
of international folks.
We got Canada, we got
Europe,
UK,
Morocco,
and also
New Zealand.
The funny thing is right before we hit play on this, I was talking to Danielle, and I was like, "Gosh, we're such terrible capitalists. We should be making so much more money. We have a really good show. We have good chemistry. Like, people like us. We have quality. We're like a niche independent movie that everyone's like, that's a really good movie. That should be playing in the main multiplexes. You can find it in the art theater. But it's one of those
We're in the
situations.
art district, folks.
Yeah, we're like the art district, and like word of mouth spreads. But then I also realized you build it up slowly, and that's fine, because my immigrant father sits there and goes, "You and Danielle should be making so much more money." It like pains him. You can imagine. He goes, "Why?" But then he goes, "No, it's right, because look." And then he watches CNN and MSNBC, and him and my mom get so pissed. Like, this idiot Scott Jennings makes so much, but you see why they make so much.
Yep.
You have to sell a bit of your soul, folks. And Danielle and I, we've been in the game. We've had a foot in the game. Like, I was a CNN contributor. I was an op-ed writer for New York Times. I've always been independent I've been lucky to have a foot in it. So I know how both worlds operate, but I could have made so much more money. And Danielle could have made so much more money. We know the script to recite. We know, like, even now, if I really wanted to subsidize my children's life, Danielle, I'd be a Vivek.
Yeah.
I could simply come out like a Vivek. I guarantee you, folks, within 2 months, I'd make so much money. The right wing would give me a contract. I could run for office. I'd write a shit book. I'd have a speaking tour. I'd have my own podcast. Danielle could be like Byron Donalds and, Tim Scott and Danielle break down America. Danielle would be making like 7 figures. Easy.
And I wouldn't be able to sleep at night or go home for the holidays.
Yeah, my wife would probably divorce me. My children would hate me.
So that's what we say, folks. We appreciate you all. We appreciate every, dollar. We appreciate every view, every share, every like. It goes a long way. And somebody said, art districts are cool. And I'm like, absolutely, they are.
Victoria, keep a space for us. By the way, Victoria's in Portugal right now. Danielle and I keep joking, but not really, about like places for expats. And folks, in all seriousness, some people are wondering, like, where do I go if America turns to hell? Portugal. Portugal has a fantastic expat community, very diverse, and Portugal has kind of gone through its fascist moment. So if you're like kind of our age and you want to spend the next 20 years of your life in like a kind of a beautiful place, I'm just saying, everyone who's gone to Portugal keeps telling me Portugal.
Yeah, it's Portugal, it's Mexico City, it's Spain. They all have lovely, lovely expat communities and digital nomad.
And Texas has measles.
Yeah. So yay. That is it for us today, dear friends, on Democracy-ish. I'm Danielle Moodie.
I'm Wajahat Ali, and we will be back on Monday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time.
If in fact we have a country left, or regardless of whether or not we do. Inshallah.